Good day to you all here in Florida, across the USA, and around the world. It's Wednesday, July 24, 2019. My name is Mark. Just heard a couple days ago that the U.S. House in D.C. had passed a bill raising the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour. It's probably dead on arrival in the Senate, so we're probably not going to have federal action on this, at least not for now. But just today, John Morgan of the famous or infamous Florida law firm Morgan & Morgan claims that a Florida constitutional amendment ballot question implementing a $15 minimum wage, not that it's likely to be on the ballot in 2020, but that it will be on the ballot in 2020, and Florida voters love voting yes on any and all ballot questions. I'd like to say that this video will be a once-and-for-all refutation of the minimum wage and what its proponents claim to be its benefits. However, it has already been refuted many times and will assuredly need to be done so again. But I hope that between my circle of friends and acquaintances, my style of presentation, and the content here, that I'll be able to change a few minds on the issue. I do want to preface what I'm going to say by suggesting that people calling for the minimum wage are certainly not necessarily, and probably for the most part, not bad people. I think they're misinformed, and I think that they take stated intentions of a policy as gospel, and they don't actually either care about or they're unaware, or they happen to be unaware that stated intentions of a policy don't necessarily translate to what the actual effect of the policy is, i.e., there are lots of unintended consequences of potentially well-meaning policy. So, we're going to do this. This is something that you would have learned in a principles or an intro to economics class in college. So we have on the y-axis, we have price. On the x-axis, we have quantity. And what we're going to do here is draw a supply curve slope upward. That's a pretty basic concept. Demand curve slope downward. We don't need to get into the weeds as far as explaining that in particular. We can do that another time. Okay? Right here is the equilibrium price, we'll say, of labor. So P-E, price equilibrium. And here is the quantity supplied of labor at the equilibrium price. So employees and employers, relative to all of their other options, are relatively happy here than anywhere else. When we get let's say that this happens to be $10, the equilibrium price. If we get a minimum wage, we'll call that PM for minimum price, minimum wage, at $15 per hour, which is higher than $10 per hour, which means it's a price floor above the equilibrium price. Call that 15. What we do is make it so that the quantity supplied of labor and the quantity demanded for labor at the price floor at the minimum wage of $15 are quite different. And what is the difference between the quantity of labor supplied, meaning the people who want to work at $15 per hour, minus the quantity demanded at $15 per hour, meaning the employers who want to hire people at $15 per hour? Well, that difference, you can call it a surplus of labor. Technically speaking, it would be called a surplus. One could also think of it as a shortage of jobs, and we could also think about it as unemployment. So what we've done here is discourage the demand for labor, which means the employers, people who are willing to pay people, they're going to be willing to pay fewer people $15 minimum wage. That's partially because their business might not necessarily grow or pick up enough to cover $15 minimum wage for everybody they currently have, so they're going to probably need to lay off some people. Of course, the people that keep their jobs are going to enjoy the $15 minimum wage, and along with the so-called dignity that John Morgan and his Facebook page keep citing. Well, what about the dignity of the people who lose their jobs? I haven't heard him or anybody else who supports the minimum wage talk about the dignity of people who lose their jobs. So that, in short, explains the deal with the minimum wage and why there are rational people like me who think about these issues and reject something like the minimum wage. It causes issues that people don't think about. People think that they can enforce mandates and prohibitions onto employees and to employers and people in society, and they'll get their desired result because they don't understand that people do respond to incentives. Now, I did address briefly the employer side of it. How about the employee side of it? Well, obviously, at $15 minimum wage, more people than otherwise would be willing to take jobs at 15 over 10. Some people might, at $10 per hour, they might rather sit at home and not do anything. They might rather sit at home and collect welfare. But all of a sudden, at $15 minimum wage, they might be more likely to go out and look for a job. So that does partially explain the increased quantity supplied of labor at that price. What you also might have is actually higher skilled labor than the people who are working at $10. They might actually go for the same job at $15 per hour that somebody who was making $10 per hour is currently holding. Obviously, that's going to displace the person who's currently employed at $10 per hour, because an employer would rather have somebody who has more skills and more training and more experience employed at that higher price, right? So you have a lot of factors here that are actually going to hurt the most vulnerable people, the people that the minimum wage is purportedly trying to help, which are the people that currently make the lowest wages. So again, I think most of the people who support minimum wage are very well-meaning. I think they just don't understand very, very basic supply and demand curves, and they don't understand basic laws of economics when it comes to price controls and the surpluses and shortages that they create. Thank you all so much for your time. It's been a pleasure, and hope to see all your comments down in YouTube. Have a great, safe day, and be healthy and be well.